So I think this handbook could serve people that feel curious about other ways in which we can set up and configure learning settings. Because in the handbook, we speak about how in conventional schooling, we think of learning as something that only happens through teaching and in some institutions. And we start explaining in the book briefly how in the Agile learning model, we see learning as something natural that happens all the time, of course, through teaching as well. But as long as you live, you learn, right? So we start outlining a perspective in which we see kids and youth, and actually everyone, as long life learners, self-directed learners, and how that happens through conversation, through play, through formal classes as well, of course, through experimentation, through research, formal and informal research, through like just conversations with yourself, right? Through observation, through contemplation. So I think that people that feel interested in expanding their vision and their understanding about learning could really serve, this book could really serve their purposes.
From my side, the part that actually I like a lot is the circle of leadership, because it complements also the Agile Learning Center's vision of learning, by seeing also the collectiveness and how not only the individual learning process, but actually how the sum of the individuals actually makes a whole, and how the personality of each of us and the all the talents that we have individually actually make the group stronger. So yeah, that's, for example, one that I like a lot.
Interesting that you mentioned that, because in our communities, we value autonomy, and we see many forms of leadership, right? Like kids, when we don't have only a couple of ways in which leadership can look like, right? Like kids become the leaders of their own learning, right? So we expand also the way in which we understand leadership, and then kids also can acknowledge themselves as leaders, even if they don't look like the conventional leaders, right? And that creates an upward spiral of trust and confidence in themselves and in other people to facilitate experiences for themselves and others in the community as well. So yeah, definitely. The tools not only support and enhance the self-direction from kids, but also how we create community and we create culture intentionally together in the micro and the macro as well.
Yeah, well, and what it's beautiful about that is that when we even define at the micro level, for example, with the game shifting board, how we want to operate, for example, in a specific meeting, we are actually collectively deciding and designing the way we want to operate. So we are so inclusive that we are designing the spaces together. And that makes it fantastic. I mean, I never went to a school where I could co-design the space and decide together with my teacher what were the rules of the space, or how we would operate in a lesson or participate in the lessons, or so on. So that I find also powerful from what we do.
Definitely, because we understand as part of the core philosophy that the context teaches as much as the content of the experience, right? And if you have kids participating in the creation of the context in which their learning happens, then it becomes much more relevant for them, and they practice their own social skills and like making agreements and prioritizing and making decisions, because we want kids to have the capacity to make good decisions for themselves, right? And for others together. But we don't give them much space for that usually in our structures, right? So here, by doing so, we enhance also their capacity to exercise their autonomy in relationship to other autonomies as well, right? So how can I care for myself and care for you? How can I take mine but grow ours, etc. So yeah, definitely.